Welcome back, everybody. Well, this is going to be great, and I hope you all really find it not only interesting but informative. I'm going to be doing a multi part series on Jews and the Democratic Party and why do we, myself as a Jew, and I don't support the Democratic Party, but why are still there are an overwhelming number of Jews who support the Democratic Party? I want to start with a little personal insight to that. A number of years ago, the rabbi over at Temple Emmanuel, a very, and I'll call it progressive liberal, what they call Reform Temple on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, one of the richest temples in the country. The rabbi there spoke in favor of Barack Obama, basically extolling him as fantastic and terrific. And Obama is an abject anti-Semite. And what I did was I wrote an opinion piece to the New York Times, which was published online, saying that the how dare the rabbi there in the Jewish temple in a community of Jews extol Barack Obama as being so terrific, and I detailed why he's not. And then I kind of maybe I should have ended with, and he should be stripped bare and caned at the Beamer. Well, it got published, but then Temple Emmanuel must have contacted the New York Times. They pulled it down, and I was banned for life. So I'm going to start with that. I'm also going to credit the Times of Israel, right? The periodical, the Times of Israel, with this next part of this video series. The opening part, why the Jews are supporting the Democratic Party. Well, for decades, American Jews have overwhelmingly supported the Democratic Party. The legacy of social justice, civil rights, and liberal ideals have aligned with Jewish values. At least that's what we've been told. But recent years have shattered that illusion. Today, being a Democrat and being Jewish are no longer compatible. The party that once stood as a symbol of tolerance and equality has become a breeding ground for anti-Semitism, a megaphone for those who demonize Israel, and a safe haven for ideologies that threaten Jewish survival. It's time for Jews to wake up. The betrayal of Jewish values. For generations, Jews have voted Democratic, believing in the party's promise to protect the marginalized. We stood shoulder to shoulder with civil rights activists, fought for immigration rights, and championed religious freedom. But now, the party we helped build, they've turned their back on us. Look at the way Democratic leaders respond to anti-Semitism. Time and time again, high-profile members of the party have either excused or ignored blatant Jewish hatred. When Ilhan Omar accused Jews of buying political influence with the Benjamins and insinuated dual loyalty, her party gave her nothing more than a slap on the wrist. When Rashid Tlaib spread blood libels about Israel, Democrats rushed to defend her. Imagine for a second if a Republican had said anything remotely similar. The outrage would have been deafening. But because anti-Semitism now hides under the disguise of anti-Zionism, it's given a free pass on the left. Well, let's talk about the party of intersectional hate. Progressive ideology has made it clear Jews are no longer welcome. The intersectional hierarchy, where oppression is measured by skin color and victimhood states, has placed Jews in the enemy camp. We are seen as privileged oppressors despite centuries of exile, discrimination, and genocide. In this twisted worldview, Jews are white colonizers and Palestinians are their rightful victims. Well, facts don't matter. History doesn't matter. What matters is the narrative, and the Democratic Party has embraced it fully. This is why anti Israel sentiment is no longer confined to the radical groups. It's mainstream. It's why a growing number of young Democrats believe Israel shouldn't exist. It's why colleges, overwhelmingly leftist, have become hotbeds of pro-Palestinian activism, where Jewish students are harassed, their events shut down, and their safety threatened. And it's why the Democratic Socialists of America, Bernie Sanders, a group backed by prominent Democratic lawmakers, chant from the river to the sea, and that's a call for Israel's destruction.
It began Saturday morning with a massive rocket barrage from Gaza striking across Israel.
Palestinian militants from the armed group Hamas launched a surprise coordinated attack on Israel by land, sea, and air on Saturday morning.
Tonight, the disturbing footage from October 7th showing Hamas terrorists inside an Israeli military base. 7 female soldiers covered in blood and bruises are up against a wall.
Over 1,200 Israelis were slaughtered, raped, burned alive, and yet the Democratic response was horrifyingly muted. Yes, President Biden initially expressed support for Israel, but within days, his administration began pressuring Israel to de-escalate.
Thanks to the leadership of our President Joe Biden, there is a deal on the table for a ceasefire and a hostage deal. And it is important that we recall what the deal involves. The first phase of the deal would bring about a full ceasefire, including a withdrawal of the Israeli military from population centers in Gaza. In the second phase, the Israeli military would withdraw from Gaza entirely, and it would lead to a permanent end to the hostilities. I also expressed with the Prime Minister my serious concern about the scale of human suffering in Gaza, including the death of far too many innocent civilians. And I made clear my serious concern about the dire humanitarian situation there. What has happened in Gaza over the past 9 months is devastating. The images of dead children and desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety, sometimes displaced for the second, third, or fourth time.
Even as Jewish hostages remained in Gaza, even as Hamas continued its terror. Meanwhile, progressive Democrats wasted no time condemning Israel instead. Calls for a ceasefire erupted before Israel could even defend itself. Protesters flooded in the streets, not to mourn Israeli lives, but to demand an end to Jewish and Israel's existence. The same people who screamed, "Silence is violence" in 2020 suddenly had nothing to say about Jewish babies being beheaded and burned in ovens. The hypocrisy is staggering. And then came the White House betrayal. Just weeks after the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, the Biden administration entertained the idea of withholding military aid to Israel.
They go into Rafah. I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah, to deal with the cities, to deal with that problem.
The president has already paused a shipment of 3,500 additional U.S. bombs to Israel.
The ICC, the International Criminal Court, accused Israel of war crimes while turning a blind eye to Hamas. Human shields. The message was clear. Jewish lives are expendable. Some Jews still cling to the hope that the Democratic Party can be salvaged. Well, they can forget that. They argue that Biden is still a friend to Israel, that the party isn't as radical as its loudest members. But this is wishful thinking. The base of the Democratic Party has shifted, and it's shifting hard against the Jews. Young progressives, indoctrinated by academia and social media, see Israel as an apartheid state. They believe in dismantling it, and they are the future of the Democratic Party. The truth is, the Democratic Party has left Jews behind. The ideals we hold dear, moral clarity, self-defense, the right to exist, are no longer welcome. We cannot remain in a political home that does not fight for us and that does not defend us when we are under attack. The time for excuses is over. If you are Jewish and still a Democrat, ask yourself, when the next crisis comes, when the next attack happens, where will your party stand? Will they stand with you, or will they once again turn away? The answer is obvious.
The greatest enemy that Israel faces, one word: Jews. Jews.